Welcome back to the EE Podcast. My name is Parker Smith. I'm joined by my two brothers.
Granger.
Trivia winner Tyler.
And we're coming to you live from Georgetown, Texas. We run an outdoor brand called Yee Yee, which is built on faith, freedom, and the outdoors. It is officially Christmas week. We're getting in the Christmas spirit here. Man, time really does fly. It feels like just yesterday we were filming last week's episode, and here we are the week of Christmas.
That's true. That's true.
It's true.
I want to talk a little bit about Christmas and just how much it means to you guys. This is the definition of winging it. What are you guys looking forward to about Christmas this year? Come on. Tell me.
Not spending it with you. That's kind of sad. That's kind of sad.
It is sad, man.
None of us are spending it together this year.
Tyler, you and Mom should definitely spend it with us. You should definitely spend it with us.
We already made plans, though.
You and Mom together.
Yeah.
What are y'all going to do?
We're going to go out there with her. I'm
What?
going to go out there on the 22nd and then come back the 20.
But this comes out Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. What am I going to be doing? I think I'm just going to be spending it with her and then let y'all do your thing. Parker's going to be in San Antonio, and then we'll come back like Christmas Day or the next day.
Yeah, but I'm saying y'all should come because there's nothing like seeing Christmas through the eyes of a child. And I worry that you and Mom, I don't worry, but I just feel like you and Mom won't get to see because and I'm partly saying this, Mom, because I know you're listening right now. You listen to every one of these podcasts. I'm partly saying it because there might be a feeling, like you just said, Tyler, where you say, I'll let you guys do your thing. Well, our thing always in our house is better with more people.
It is kind of sad as you get older. Families split apart. People go do their own Christmases. And then for a little while, it just seems like the Christmas spirit just dies, brother. Until, like you said, until you are able to get around others. And I don't know, it's just kind of weird growing up. Christmas just like shifts in your mind, especially if you've lost somebody. They usually come to mind around that time of year. And yeah, it helps to kind of be around kids. Even if
I did a segment on After Midnight of who are you missing this year, and we were just flooded with phone calls. Have I told y'all that? We were just flooded.
Yeah, that's what reminded me of it. Was
Yeah.
when you told me that happened.
Like so many phone calls of people saying who they're missing, and it just kind of reminds you that a lot of times this season is just something that tells everyone that they're alone.
The older I get, the least I like Christmas. I'm about to
turn.
Ebenezer Scrooge you guys, but if I'm being honest, it's like I don't really care about Christmas. Like I'm just kind of ready, like because I feel like everybody shuts down as far as business goes for like two to 3 weeks. Everything gets slow. Nobody responds emails. Like
yeah,
business
it's pretty
is
annoying, honestly.
like everybody's kind of waiting to the next. And my
Or they're just
person,
like home with their families or something.
my personality is just always to be working in some capacity. I mean, I do love a few days off and go deer hunting and stuff like that. But
Okay, let me say a few things before
maybe
this
all
podcast
that'll
gets too
change
low.
when I have kids.
Let me say a few
But-
things before this podcast gets too low. One, as we celebrate the birth of Christ, that we're taking that out of it. Like that's not part of what we're saying. Two, I think it's a testament to how amazing our Christmases were as a kid, that it's really hard to replicate the feeling of the greatest day of the entire year, December 25th. Like your birthday is a secondary to December 25th, the greatest day of us three growing up as boys. And that's a testament to amazing parents that made us feel so special in our home, and being together was really important. And there was good food and there was tradition and there was, it was just a really special time. And so I think that's number 2. Number 3, I most likely enjoy Christmas most of this group because I have kids that I see it through their eyes, and Christmas is really special seeing it through the kids' eyes. So Parker's almost there and Tyler's not there yet. So Parker, you're like 1 year away from David, seeing the joy in his eyes of Christmas, and then that spark will come back in you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the late night Christmas Eve nights of putting together toys. You didn't get to do that last year, right?
No.
And will you do it this year? Tonight?
Yes. I mean, no, not for David though. We're
Well-
just like getting gifts for like friends and stuff.
So most likely next year you'll actually be putting together the thing that, like last year, I remember I was up late putting together the basketball hoop, and that's like a tradition, the man tradition is staying up late Christmas Eve putting together some toy.
Yeah, and I guess that doesn't entirely die when you eat, just because if you decide not to do Santa. Because I'm just thinking, like, if we're not doing Santa, then like, is that whole part of my life just not going to be recreated at all?
No, you could ask my kids. We don't celebrate Santa, and my kids, it doesn't take away anything from them because we still put out the bigger gift. We put it out without being sorry, Brian. Without being wrapped. We put the big gift out.
Yeah,
So they come in, to the living room, and there it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, but is the magic lost that it's not brought from Santa?
I don't know. I mean, ask my kids. They wouldn't say.
Well, your 2 older kids were old enough to not believe. Like, did y'all have the talk with them? Like, so, like that age between like 3 and 8, where you kind of understand.
I don't think it does, man. It's funny because Maverick doesn't know Santa at all, and he saw him on a movie last night with the Salvation Army ringing the bell, and he goes, "Look at that Christmas man." It's like he calls him the Christmas man. He doesn't even know his name. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I guess it's still fun. Did you guys know that Christmas was banned in parts of the United States during the 17th century by the Puritans, who believed that it was too worldly?
Yeah, I do know that.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't go that far in saying, we need to ban all this. No more trees, no more anything. You're just like, I'm just not going to try to convince my kids that a big guy comes down the chimney and watches them when they're sleeping and knows when they're awake and is all sovereign and all knowing.
I think I go a little further than that. I think I go like I don't like reindeer and Frosty and sleigh
What
bells.
you got against reindeer and Frosty, man?
Yeah, if I'm listening to this, I'm like, dude, what are you talking? You're
I'm
like
sorry.
You're like a fundamentalist. What are you talking about?
I'm
man?
sorry. Yeah, I'm probably making people a little bit uncomfortable, and that's a me. Honestly, that's a me thing. I wouldn't push that on anybody.
Yeah.
But I just personally get a little convicted as of late when I just see all these huge celebrations and songs. Oh, here's an example. I went down a rabbit hole the other day because I heard George Strait singing "Oh Christmas Tree." You know that song? "Oh Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, ha da 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 da." And I was like, "That's the paganest song I've ever heard in my whole life." As I heard George singing it, and so I looked up the lyrics, and it's basically a tree worship song. It's a Christmas tree worship song. It brings, it brings good luck and hope and good wishes, and it brings joy like the tree does itself. But then I went down a rabbit hole because the lyrics have changed over the last few centuries. And you go back far enough, like 300 years with that song, and it's all about God. And the tree reminds us of God because of He's everlasting, and the tree had the evergreen tree is evergreen, reminding us of our everlasting, unchanging God. Even in the wintertime, when all the other trees have lost their leaves, there's an evergreen tree that stays green just to remind us of our unchanging God. I was like, that's the big origin of that song. The tree would remind people of an an unchanging God in the midst of an ever-changing world. I was like, that's cool, but now it's lost. So anyway, anything that kind of muddies that water makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, so do you guys think Hurricane Helene was weaponized? Just kidding. We don't have to get to that yet. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that the world has become much more secular. And now, if you're listening to this, you're like, man, these three brothers are like way more Christian fundamentalists. I feel like I just got Scrooged.
I would argue that I don't think the world is more secular. I feel like there's been, and I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there's been a change recently with the politics and the state of the world and everything, and conspiracy theories, whatever, coming true. And I feel like there's been a bigger shift in people seeking Jesus than there has been in my lifetime.
I think that if you look, you could just look at polls in the United States over the last 50 years, and you could clearly see the percentage of those who profess Christ and those who are agnostic or atheist have skyrocketed.
I just want to say this is my personal conviction. I wouldn't tell anybody you better not celebrate Frosty the Snowman. You know, that's pretty ridiculous. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you know, that muddies the water of the day that we celebrate. And we also know December 25th is definitely not the birthday of Christ. That's definitely not. So let's throw all that out there just to say that this is just my personal conviction. And I think the same thing is kind of my thoughts on Halloween. And Easter. Bunnies and eggs is weird to me.
Make a line graph.
He's listening to me, not you.
Talking to ChatGPT. Hold on. Make a line graph showing the religious trends or religious association of those in the United States over the last 60 years by decade. He's almost there.
I'll mute him there. And I'll also say, as he's thinking, I've done so much research on Nicholas, who now we know as Santa Claus. And Nicholas was a pretty incredible man in the 4th century in Turkey.
Yeah, he gave all those gifts to those kids.
Yeah, he was incredible. He could fly. He could fit down chimneys. Like when I say incredible. But anyway, what a legend that he is, that has been completely stained and twisted. What's the graph say?
Percentage of population professing as Christians. I'm assuming this is correct. I don't know, man. This says
ChatGPT's always correct, Parker.
This says 90% of those in the United States would have associated with Christianity in 1960. And it progressively goes down about 5% each year to today. It's about 65%.
That sounds right.
Those at none or professing another religion were at less than 5%, 1960 to 1980, and then has increased now about 5 to 10% a year. So today, 65% of people would associate with Christianity, and 30% would associate with none. 10% would associate with other religions.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, according to most polls, yes, that's right. Christianity is definitely the profession of it, the cultural side of it. It's the fatty side of it is dying off.
Yeah.
What Tyler sees is the muscle tissue that's beneath the fat. So when the fat falls off, you're like, oh, there's actually some strong muscle in here. But the fat is what gets bigger and gets smaller over centuries.
So you're saying that even though, those who would profess in a general poll of Christianity has gone down from, say, 85% to 65% in the U.S., although that's gone down and it's become less popular in the culture, it's almost easier to see, like, those who are actually, like, living out their faith because you can see their light more as the world gets dimmer.
Yeah, you lose your fat, you see the muscle underneath. The light, yeah, that's exactly right. And God's not going to miss any of his people. And so the number is rising drastically in Iran, in China, in there's other countries where Christianity is rising. And then there's many countries in the West where it's falling. So like Europe is turning dark quickly. And we always follow the trend of Europe. So we'll follow styles, clothing, music. The U.S. sets the trend in movies, but we follow most of culture, and we'll also follow religion. England, just about dead with Christianity. Ireland, a vast desert.
Isn't that crazy, man? It's like less than 2 or 3%, or like less than 1% in some of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's just completely gone.
It's coming to us. Yeah. So that'll be the U.S. in 100 years. Christianity will be gone. There'll be empty churches everywhere. But that doesn't mean there'll be less real Christians here, because they'll still be here. But it's the fat that grows when it's culturally cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you a Christian? I don't know. Because that's what we do here in the U.S. Like,
Yeah.
my parents are. I go to church like that. You guys have you seen all the Christmas stuff going around on the internet right now? Like Prestonwood Baptist. Have you seen that?
Mm.
It's crazy. It's not Christian at all. But that's the culture. And so that stuff will die. The mega churches that do the big Christmas pageants with Santa Claus on sleighs will die.
Well, this all comes down to one thing. It comes down to truth. And Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And like to that, with all that stuff that's died, the Easter bunnies, the Santas, the flying reindeer, it's all not real. And my argument, or not argument, but my point is that people with the media, the lies, the politics, the conspiracy theories, the UFOs, what's real, what's not. People, I feel like, are sick of getting fed fake stuff through social media and through friends, etc. They just want the truth. And again, what is the truth? Jesus is the truth.
The same thing happens in music. Chris Stapleton rises when the boy bands get too popular. And so, yeah, people will just seek what's authentic. Like, what's authentic.
Yeah. So you mentioned a mega church that, like, maybe puts on a show that is almost like a play. It's entertaining. Did you say you texted it to me?
No, I'll show you right now.
Okay.
And I could send it to Brian so he could have it. But it's pretty fascinating. It's I think about, in terms of, like, you invite somebody to church that's not a believer, and you say, hey, come to my church. I think you're going to love it. And they get there, and
it's better than a Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah.
I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, I kid you not. Nah, I won't say it because he might listen to this podcast. You can just play the video.
Watch this. This is Prestonwood in Dallas. It's called The Greatest Showman / The Greatest Snowman. That cryo is crazy. It's like Santa. Anyway,
so to the people watching, what's wrong with that? That might be like, what's wrong with that?
So-
We got people to church.
So to those listening, also on Spotify and Apple. It was essentially about 100 people on stage, huge production, and there was a Santa Claus in the middle with a top hat, like the movie The Greatest Showman, and he's got like a big cane.
Yeah. So to the people saying this is awesome, cool.
Or
What
to
would
the
you
people
say?
who are saying, like, you're getting more people in church.
Right.
And isn't that the point?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to just be in some musty, old, dark building
Well, it has to be musty.
that just like doesn't, you just don't want
Oh,
new,
think of the opposite of whatever that
Granger,
was.
you don't want people coming into church. You're just unwelcoming. I'm thinking of a church in the 60s that didn't let people in because they didn't have shoes.
Well, I think here's a perspective we need to think instead. Instead of thinking that, we need to think as
Screw you, man.
as a Christian, we have an incredible thing to tell you. We have an incredible information
okay, cool.
to
But
tell you,
but is it
right?
is it cool like those cryos that I just saw?
And
Yeah.
so it's
Is it a good hit
we
song?
know
What
we
is
know
it?
that the word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and of spirit. And we know that we have the greatest news to tell. And so when we have to say that news is going to come at the tail end of the greatest showman,
if at all.
so that you come in here to hear the greatest news, then it's really not the greatest news. It's just like the dog's heartworm pill that we have to hide inside a piece of hot dog because they don't want to eat. We think they don't want to eat the heartworm pill because it's bitter. So we put it inside all this fluff and we say, eat this. And then they eat it and we go, yes, they got the gospel. High five, the people got the gospel, the bitter pill that we think we don't want to feed them. Instead, we're like, no, that pill is the greatest food they could eat. And if we present it that way, then we're gonna be cutting the fat. And so this is what I'm talking about. As the culture grows and people profess Christianity, a lot of them are people that go see The Greatest Showman at Prestonwood Baptist and go, yeah, I'm a Christian. Why? I mean, I go to church. Cool. Then you're a statistic. But when things get tough and your mom gets diagnosed with cancer and she says, I'm leaving, and your dad's gone and you have no one left in your life, and then that Christianity falls apart. You have nothing to stand on. It's weak. You can't even tell anybody what the gospel is. That's part of it. Another part is saying that church is here to entertain you. That's the message it's communicating. Church is something that you absorb and it feeds you and it entertains you, instead of a gathering of the saints where we're fed and we're serving each other, and we are like sheep in a flock with shepherds that feed us, care for us, seek us when we're lost, bring us back in. That's the message that's the beautiful message that you communicate with church. Like, hey, you lost? You hungry? Are you hurting? You have anxiety? You need, join our family. We're a family. We'll hold each other accountable. We'll pull you in. You need something, we got you. You need a bed to sleep in, I got you. You weary, I'll give you rest. This is the work of Christ through the church, the members coming in together. That's the message. That's the great message to tell the world. Instead of, you need entertainment, we got it. And then you go back into the rest of the world and it's,
Can you not do both?
no, you can't.
So are there any Christians
I don't
at
think-
Prestonwood Baptist Church?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Prestonwood Baptist saying, and this is probably what they did, we're going to use our venue for a show. We're going to rent it out. We're going to charge a ticket price, whatever. But it's basically a theater that we're going to use. But it has nothing to do with church. So don't think this is church. It's not. We're just using our theater for a really cool family-oriented entertainment show. But don't tell me that this is a heartworm pill I'm stuffing into baloney.
I think that's what that was, right? It was just like a Christmas play that they do every year. I don't think it was like for Sunday morning service.
I'm sure it was.
I don't know.
Either way, the answer's no. You can't have both at that level because there is no one to care for that many sheep. You can't.
So are you saying that a church with 1,000+ members is
it's not has nothing to do with numbers.
okay?
It has more to do with the amount of shepherds that are appropriate for the flock.
So you can have
If you got a big old
you can
flock,
have 5,000 members if you have
Yeah.
a ton of elders
yeah.
that can shepherd.
Yeah, if none of them get lost, then you could have 5,000. There's 5,000 throughout church history. Spurgeon had a whole lot. Whitfield, a lot of these guys had a whole lot. Martin Lloyd Jones had a whole lot in his church.
Even then, though, shouldn't you be planning churches to not just have one just continue to grow?
There are definitely problems with that. But
That's why it makes most sense when you hit a certain number to send members out, and you're raising up leaders who can then go lead another congregation and shepherd them, and you go start it out. And you're a green light church. You're sending out rather than hoarding everything to yourself.
yeah, big churches are not bad inherently, and small churches are not good. Neither of those things are true. It's more of the system. What are you communicating? How are you caring for the flock? Look, let me show y'all something while we're on this subject. Might as well, right? Let me show you something. Ezekiel in the Bible, Ezekiel 34, says this. The word of the Lord came to me, Ezekiel the prophet's talking. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Shepherds, it's the same word as pastor. Prophesy and say to them, even to the shepherds, thus says the Lord, ah, shepherds of Israel, who have been feeding yourselves. Should not shepherds feed the sheep? You eat the fat, you clothe yourselves with the wool. You slaughter the fat ones, but you do not feed the sheep. The weak you have not strengthened, the sick you have not healed, the injured you have not bound up, the strayed you have not brought back, the lost you have not sought. And with force and harshness you ruled over them. So they were scattered because there was no shepherd, and they became food for all the wild beasts. My sheep were scattered. They wandered all over the mountains and over every high hill. My sheep were scattered all over the face of the earth, with none to search or seek for them. And he goes on and on. Basically, he's saying, look, your purpose as a shepherd or a pastor or overseer or bishop, whatever you call it, your purpose is to do these things, care for the flock, to seek what they're lost, to help them in their illnesses, to feed them, to clothe them. That's your purpose. So if you get to a point where you're too big or you're too worried about the greatest showman and the show part of it, that you can't do your main purpose as a leader of a church, then you will fail them. You will fail.
So are you saying, is it a red flag if the pastor of a church doesn't know my name if I attend there?
If one of them doesn't know your name.
So it's okay if the main pastor doesn't, but if an elder knows me and is caring for me, that's okay?
Depends on the leadership. But if you don't have a relationship with any pastor at your church, if one of them wouldn't know you, no, that could be your fault too, unless you're a member. But if you're just a casual attendee, then don't expect anything. But if you're in a meaningful membership, then they will know you. And so at some point there's an accountability on yourself. But yes, Tyler, there's a red flag. If you have a problem and you pull out your phone and go, I can't call a single pastor at my church because I don't know a single one of them. That's a huge problem. Wow, that was a big shift.
If you are interested at all and you're a crazy person like us, one of the best books that I've ever read is called What is a Healthy Church by Mark Dever. And that will, the premise of the book is, does the New Testament give us any indication of how we should run our churches, or should we run them all like a business? And the basis of the book is, don't use the latest business practices to run your church, but to look to God's word and what he has to say about what it means to care for the flock. Because I think that one of the concerns of a church like that with that you showed me is you saying that they're going to put the pill inside the peanut butter, but they're probably not going to have a great understanding of what the gospel is. It's probably going to be some form of invitation at the end where they're manipulated with music, where they're going to then ask people, is there anybody in this room that just feels empty? Well, yeah, it's America. There's lots of people who are feeling empty inside. Do you just feel anxious? Do you just feel like you got a God-sized hole in your heart? Yeah. let me just stick up your hand. Let me just see who I'm praying for. Yeah, hands all over this room. Lots of people are feeling stressed, anxious. If you're ready to just come back to God, just stick up a hand. But that's not the gospel. It's just preying on people, manipulating them with music. It's not the good news.
And I will add, probably with sincerity. They're not manipulating because they're evil people.
Right, 100%.
They just truly feel like the message they have is a little scary, and they want to put some peanut butter around it because it might scare people off.
That's a great point. They have the best of intentions, and they've dedicated their lives to it. And
Yeah.
I should be careful when I talk about it like that. I want to do it with love. But yeah,
Are there people that actually go out to try to manipulate on purpose? Of course. We could name them. There's like televangelists that we all know they're in prison now for pedophilia or whatever. But I think most of what you're talking about are people that genuinely, they want to help people. They just don't really know how to package it.
and they're told that they need to hit a certain quota
Yeah.
of new attendees for that month.
Yeah.
And they're more worried about growing their numbers than they are about their people growing spiritually. All right. Well, yeah, that was a long tangent. Anybody anything else before we sign off
I
on our
even have
Christmas
more
episode?
videos, but I don't think we have time. But
Yeah.
I'll show you guys afterwards some crazy stuff.
We could talk about that all day.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas,
I
everybody.
hope the holiday is just jolly for you. Oh, good movie I saw with my family randomly. I was like, because we were trying to watch Christmas movies every night with the family, get everyone together and watch a Christmas movie, and you know, like you see so many, and you don't really know. So I just make sure it's PG, and we'll just watch it. But it's called 8-Bit Christmas, and it's about a guy that's like about our generation, and his little girl is like 12, and she wants a phone really bad, and they go to grandma's house, and she's talking about this phone. He's like, "You're not going to get a phone," and she's like, "Well, I'm so bored. What am I going to do here?" And he goes, "I'll tell you what we're going to do." And they go upstairs and he goes, "We're going to play Nintendo NES." She's like, "Oh, that sounds so horrible." And he's like, "Believe it or not, when I was your age, I wanted this more than you want the phone." She's like, "That's not true." He's like, "It is. Let me tell you the story." And then it kind of goes back in time, how he got his first Nintendo. And it's actually ends up being a really good little story.
What's it on? Netflix?
I got it on Amazon. We rented it on Amazon for $3 or whatever.
It is crazy, man, because one day that kid is going to explain to their kid how they wanted that old iPhone
Yeah.
more than anything, and their kid's literally not going to believe them.
Yeah. It has a little twist at the end that I won't give it away, but it's a nice little. It actually is a little heartfelt.
That's crazy, man. So you guys think Hurricane Helene was weaponized? Or?
Maybe that should be another podcast.
Thank you guys for listening. We do wish you a Merry Christmas. There's a lot to be thankful for. We're not trying to Scrooge you. We just we love Jesus, and it's an interesting world we live in. With pagan holidays, lots to have discernment about. Lots of people do it in different ways. I hope that this conversation was interesting to you, that it didn't feel like we're trying to scold or think that we're better than. It's just something that we're passionate about.
Yeah, if you read in the gospel, if you read Luke 2 and just kind of read the story of Christ, that should move you. And really that's what it's all about, is reading that story of that young girl and her husband and the baby that was born in Bethlehem. And what the implications meant for the world. You read that shouldn't be a pill. That shouldn't be a heartworm pill. That should be enough to go, this is a message I want to tell everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't need any fluff around it. Let me just tell this message. You know, God became man to save man. It's incredible. It doesn't need...
It's incredible to a believer like you, but think
Yes.
about the person that's not a believer. They're like, "You're crazy, dude. I'm gonna celebrate with Santa Claus." Like,
According to the Bible, Tyler, that story is incredible to a believer, yes, but to the conscience, to the spirit of a human that testifies, that bears witness with the Spirit of God, that is a transforming message that even though they might reject it at first,
Yeah.
there is something inside
Think
them
about 10
that
years.
says-
10 years ago, Granger. Somebody told you, the current Granger told 10 years ago, Granger,
This is
what
great.
you're talking about.
Great point. So let's think about this. 10 years ago, what's going to really turn Granger around? Telling him how, let's read Luke 2 together. Look at this story. Think about this. Let's think about the geography of Israel. Let's think about the time period. Let's think about the Roman occupation. Let's think about what happened, the shepherds in the field and what they saw. Let's think about this story. Let's meditate on this and talk about it and dialogue about it. Or let's go see Santa flying and all these elves and Greatest Showman, and at the very end say, raise your hand if you want God in your life. Like, which one's going to get 10-year-old Granger, or 10 year ago Granger?
The Greatest Showman, for sure.
No way.
And my
No way.
ultimate,
That's not what the Bible says.
my ultimate point with this is the whole theme with this is God is sovereign, and it's His time, not ours. So God is the one that's going to pull at your heart. I'm not saying don't plant those seeds. I'm not saying preach about Luke 2. We are called to do all those things. But ultimately, it's God's plan and His timing of when He's going to pull Granger out from the depths of darkness and say, you are mine, and you realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And you are,
I'm not arguing
it
that.
is the most exciting thing in your life to tell people about what happened to you and who Jesus is.
But there is a faithful way to evangelize and an unfaithful way. God is sovereign through the unfaithful, yes. But you could be unfaithful that's not pleasing to God, and He could still be faithful through your unfaithfulness, yes. But that's our decision. That's our responsibility. How do you want to carry this message? Unfaithfully or faithfully? The epistles from Paul are full of
all I'm saying is God is the one that's going to go, all right, your heart is softened. You're going to understand who I am and what I came to do.
Yeah.
And until then, and the hardened heart Granger, my argument is probably, let's go to see the Greatest Showman guy. That's kind of cool with
but
Cryos.
that didn't do anything for me.
Yeah,
I used to be there.
Yeah, of course it didn't. Of course you were going straight to hell.
But what did matter is when I heard it laid plainly out to me. Then I was awakened.
Because God allowed you, yeah.
Of course.
At that time.
Through a faithful evangelist.
Yeah.
Not through the Greatest Showman.
Yeah, you're right. So that goes back to my point of saying, hey, we're called to continue to evangelize and tell people with that same enthusiasm that you just said. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not arguing to say, hey, don't do that. I'm just saying God is sovereign over all this. It's like, it's just a relief to surrender that to Him.
If you're still listening to the brother discussion on this podcast, you get the real deal. You get Tyler and I having a real
has
combos.
nothing to do with us. It's just
I think that the primary point, if I'm understanding both of you correctly, is, Tyler's saying that, like, ultimately God's sovereign, but then Granger's saying that if I came to Granger 10 years ago telling him to come to church to come see the Greatest Showman, and the gospel was not shared, which is that Granger was a sinner, and like a just judge doesn't let the guilty go unpunished, so when he stands before God on Judgment Day, he's going to hell. But He sent Christ, who lived the perfect life Granger should have lived, died the death that he deserved. 3 days later, he rose from the grave, showing that God accepted his sacrifice. And if you trust in his work for you in your place, then you're saved. Like, that's the news that the Bible says has supernatural power. So not to say that Granger, like Tyler's saying, Granger probably would have preferred the Greatest Showman, because the Bible says that that's what the carnal mind wants. That's what every man wants in our flesh.
Entertain me.
We don't want that news. We don't want to be, it's offensive. We don't want to be told that every good thing that we thought was good is filthy rags to God, and the only thing that's stored up for us is eternal conscience torment. That's a very offensive message. But God tells us to share that news, and that's the only chance you have, because one way or another, you're going to die, and you're going to know what was right and what was wrong.
Yes, and you know what's crazy is yesterday I did a podcast with Jason Aldean's band.
Try that in a small town.
Try that in a small town podcast. And Tully told me, he said, because I was sharing the gospel and just telling them what I do now compared to music.
Are they believers? Is it a gospel podcast, or did they just want you?
They're not a Christian podcast, but I do know, I don't know all their hearts, but I do know a couple of them are. So Tully said, it's interesting because in your old days, you used to play music at a concert to help people forget about themselves.
That's good. Yeah.
And now you can get on stage to make them think about themselves. And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's exactly right. My old life was forget about your problems. Just forget
enjoy
it.
This night, this moment, drink some tequila.
And now I'm like, think about your problems. And I've got the solution for you.
There's a song on in the background when I was working earlier, and it said, singing like a gospel choir, if we live forever, let us live forever tonight. Like, that's the chorus. And it's like, that is what so many songs are about. Tonight, it's using religious talking about tonight is forever. It's all about just, forget about it. Anyway. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Christmas. Wow.
Anyway, so do you guys think Hurricane Helene is weaponized? Or
comment below if that should be the next podcast we do, actually.
Thank you for listening. We're very grateful for all of you. We're super excited for what next year is to bring.
What Santa's going to bring us?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
And the moment passed.
Nope. All right. See you guys next week.